Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stacy's Studio. I'm Carrie Stacy, and today I'm going to show you how to make a coffee painting inspired by the one and only Beatrix Potter and her beloved character, Peter Rabbit. So this is what we're going to do today, and we're going to make. But before we get started with that, let's talk a little bit about Beatrix Potter because she's a really interesting character. I got this book, The Complete Tales, Beatrix Potter Complete Tales. I actually got it at her home in the Lake District in England. I got the pleasure of going there years ago when we were just on vacation there. It was really neat. It was a dream kind of vacation, and it was one of those things that I appreciated way more after I came home than when I was there because there was just so much to absorb while being there. So I wanted to show you, this book has got tons of different characters and tons of different stories, but I want to tell you a little bit about Beatrix Potter herself. She was born in London in 1866, and she grew up living just a typical, conventional, sheltered life of a Victorian girl in a well-to-do household. She had a younger brother, and when he was away at school, her constant companions were the pet animals she kept in the schoolroom. I mean, how would your mom like that you're keeping the little pet mice in your homeschooled schoolroom? I don't know if that would go over too well. It would not go over too well here. But anyways, she did it and she loved it. She loved studying their behaviors and sketching them. And each summer, her father would lease a country house. First it was in Scotland and later in the Lake District. And they would stay there on extended holidays. Her and her brother were able to explore the countryside and learn about plants and animals from their own observation. I mean, how exciting would that be, that you were getting to learn about the Mr. Jeremy Fisher, the toad, and all of his little critters. And that's what she would do. I mean, these are real animals that she found out in nature, and then she gave them names and gave them stories. And that's one of the great things about Beatrix Potter. She started being a children's storyteller and illustrator with The Tale of Peter Rabbit. It went over so well, and the public loved it so well that she ended up writing about 2 books a year. And this is like a compilation of lots of those books, which is really cool. That's why I got it. So anyways, the money she earned gave her some independence, and although she still lived at home with her mother and father, in 1905 she bought her first property in the Lake District. Hilltop Farms is what it was called, in a village near Surrey. The farm was surrounding countryside began to appear in her stories, and some of her best-loved illustrations show lakeland scenes that have remained unchanged even to this day. So if you were to go and visit, which I would highly recommend, everybody takes a trip to England and goes to the Lake District and visits her home at Hilltop Farms and see this vast countryside and her sweet little home that she lived in. And you'll see these things. You know, you'll look at these and you'll be like, oh, now I see where she got her inspiration. She eventually married, and her writing and illustration took second place to farming and sheep breeding, and she bought stretches of beautiful lakeland countrysides to ensure their conservation because she knew the importance of nature and our earth, and she wanted to make sure that it was not commercialized and that it wasn't taken over, that there was still areas in this world that were kept safe for the beauty of nature. And so she left when she died over 4,000 acres of land and 15 farms to the nation. And they're safe. So like nobody can touch them as far as there's no shopping malls that are going to go and be built on this area. It's kind of like our national parks here in the United States. it's kind of like a national park there. So just seeing some of these illustrations, you can see how she had beautiful places to work from. So let's talk about making your own Peter Rabbit or Benjamin Bunny or whatever you want to call it. Maybe it's some other name you want to do. So what you're going to need is paper. I'm using my sketchbook, so I'm going to flip this over to do my sketchbook again today. You'll need a pencil because you got to draw. I would suggest some markers, maybe some colored pencils. If you do not have a paintbrush, I have paintbrushes that I'm going to use, paintbrushes, but if not, use your handy dandy Q-tips. You're going to need some coffee and some water, a water cup to change it in. It's dirty because I've been using it to so you could see what you're going to be doing. Now, if you happen to have watercolor paints, I would suggest using those too. I'm going to show you how I will use those. The paper wet already. So that gives you a start of how we're going to get started with this. Okay? So, without further ado, hopefully you have all of your supplies ready to go. Let's start with the head of the rabbit. Okay? Figure out your placement of where you want your rabbit to be. So I just changed the direction of the sketchbook just to change him up. I'm not putting him up close to the top because his ears are pretty tall. So I want to go down some from there. I'm going to start off, it's kind of round, but it's not a circle. Okay, so, and he's got his little snout, and it's going to come out some, but we'll get to there. We just want the basic shape of it first, and then we'll go in and tweak it. Okay, so this is going to go up a little bit, and then we're going to kind of curve around. Okay, when you're drawing anything, always draw like the big broad shapes first, and then you can go back and put in the detail. If you get fixated on the detail, then what happens is if you make a mistake or you want to get rid of something, then it ends up, you just erase a lot of work that you did. And then it's frustrating, and then you walk away and you're like, I'm never going to draw again. And we don't want you to be that person. Because drawing can be lots of fun. It can be frustrating, but the end results can be really rewarding. Okay, so I've got some basic ears going on here. I'm going to push it up here for his body. He's standing, or he's not standing, he's sitting, but he's standing, he's sitting up tall. That's what I'm trying to say, if I can get my words out. So I'm going to come around here like this. When I get right here, I'm going to, it's kind of be like a V shape for his little legs. I'm going to fix all that here in a minute. But again, I'm just getting the broad shapes in. Then I'm going to come around here. I'm going to put his little backbone, or not backbone, his hind leg. That actually can come out further. I'm just going to come in around through here. We're going to fix this in a second where it'll be like, it won't look so odd. And then right on this side, it's kind of like putting in his other side in parentheses. the other side of his body. Okay, so that's his basic shape. So now let's go back and start with the details. So I'm going back up to the head, and let's start with the face. I'm going to put in his nose first. Okay, so this slope here, it's kind of like his nose here, and it's going to curve like a U shape and go up. Okay, right here at the tip of it, I'm going to come and put that curve. His little mouth there. Okay, now here, this is going to add to his little cheeks. So I'm going to come around here with my shape of it. And it's going to come down on this side too. It's better if you even exaggerate it. It's better to go bigger than smaller on this, because if you go bigger, it might animate him some, but that is totally okay. So on this side, I'm going to bring out his little cheek too. Let's make him have some little chubby cheeks. Okay, so it comes up right through here. And his little fur's kind of like comes up, and connects like so. Now his eye is round. It's not a diamond, it's not a circle, but it's kind of like if you mash the two together, just kind of like that. Kind of like that there. And then I want to draw in a little bit of reflection, so I'm going to put a couple little spots there. And then I'm coming around his eye with an outline that's kind of just giving him his like eyelid. Just adds to it. Okay, you with me so far? Okay, now let's fix this part of his head because it looks funny. So I'm going to come up a little bit higher. And I'm going to come a little higher here too. That doesn't really connect, but I'm going to do it just for the sake of it making sense. This here is kind of like that bone that would go above his eye there. Okay, now for his ear. Just like our ears, his ear kind of curves in. So to give that illusion, I'm going to come in with making it thin here, and then it's going to get a little thicker. Come down through here. And now I'm going to come back up and around this way. You really don't see this side of it, the way it's shadowed, but just for the sake of making it easier to see, we'll put that in. And then, so because of this shape, we're going to alter this shape here some. So I'm going to kind of come in and then down. There we go. Now this back ear, we don't see this because we're seeing the back side of the ear. But it does curve a little bit. That's why this line here is right there. It actually should curve a little bit here. And if you're wondering, I'm actually looking at an image of a rabbit. Let's see if it'll pop up. Oh, it changed. There we go. So you know where I'm getting it from. I actually found, I looked up images of rabbits, and I found one that I liked. So I'm sharing my secrets with you. How to create it. I think it works better when you have something in front of you to look at. So you can kind of see how his head is taking shape. Okay, so now I'm going to go to his body. It doesn't curve as much this way. It's a little more thicker. So I'm going to bring that in. And then I'll make that a little fuller too. Why not? And that works. And for his little feet, because this is going to be pretty simple as far as the end results, I'm just going to make them kind of curve out a little bit. Now I'm going to erase that area inside. So it's like this. This one here, I'm going to clean it up too. And this leg will curve up, kind of like this. I will clean those lines up. Okay, so I think I've got his body. Now, for the fun of the coffee. So we're going to use coffee like we would use paint. I'm going to use a paintbrush, but if you don't have a paintbrush, you can use the handy dandy Q-tip. I'll show you the Q-tip first. So I dipped it in. Oh, you might need to have a brush. Looks like that's going to just absorb. So when you are painting, or if you were drawing fur, it's the same thing. You always want to draw fur as if it's coming out of the body. Think about it as you were petting the rabbit. What would be the pattern of the hair growth? That's how you would, that's how you paint, you draw hair, anything like that when you're doing the detail of it. You want to make it look like it's coming out of the body. So that's where you kind of start it from, in the directions that you go in. So I'm going to go around the head, and if you have a cat or a dog, it's the same thing. You can look at one of them and see the pattern of their fur and how it goes around. So, you know, I went up around the nose and then around the eyes. I'm going around the eyes. But even on the face here, I'm not going down. I'm going sideways, because that's how the fur would go on the rabbit. Okay, so I've got the head finished. Now I'm going to start with I didn't get the ears yet, but I got the head. So the body, now the body's going to come down, but I'm going to curve with it too, though. So if it's curving out here to the side, then I'm going to curve out to the side. Keep your brush marks short and small. If you start making them different sizes, what happens is it's going to look off. And you can see where I've kind of got a clump of the coffee. If you take a paper towel, you can just barely get it close to it, and it will absorb it and pop it up. So I'm going to get his body covered. Okay, so I've got his body finished here, but in here where it's really dark, I could even just put a wash a wash, meaning I'm just kind of filling in with the coffee color. Kind of gives it a shadowed effect. And then his little feet, I'll add into them. I'm just going to fur them up. They might end up getting covered when you add like a little bit of a background to it. So don't worry so much about the detail there. Now, okay, good example. I clumped that up. So I'm just take a paper towel. Well, it did it again. The neat thing about the coffee is you can get pretty much all of it off and then fix it. And it dries pretty fast too. Like his face is pretty close to being dry. Now the ears, you're going to go the opposite direction. They're going to be like just as the direction they are. They're going to be going up. Now inside this ear, I'm going to do the same thing I did down in between his legs. I'm just going to put a wash of the coffee color inside of there. Even though it is still fur, it is, I'm just going to still just let it be like a smooth dark color. Okay, so I'm going to fur up his ears. All right, so I have him fully coffeeed. I'll just do it like this. Ta-da! Okay, so his eye. I'm going to take a black marker. If you have a Sharpie, that would probably be better because this is a washable marker, so if it gets wet, it's going to bleed. And it's not the end of the world if it bleeds, but you know, if you want it, you want the eye to have a crisp image. But we can fix it if it were to bleed. So I'm filling it in. I'm going around my little highlighted spots in the eye. Little reflections. Okay. So I have his little eye in there. And then I'm going to take a brown colored pencil and I'm going to just kind of outline and give him some extra details. That little outline around his eye, I'm going to go around that. I want to cover up the pencil marks with the brown because then it looks like it's more completed. So also on the nose here, I'm going to, just like we were making our marks with the coffee, I'm going to make the marks with the colored pencil, and I'm just going to kind of darken that area a little bit. It's not fully dry, so it's a little it's not going on completely, but it's going on a little bit. And then I'm going to come around here and kind of darken. Your best bet is wait for it to dry, but I'm impatient, so I'm not. And so I'm going to come around here as well. And I'm going to start just like we made the short little marks here. I'm going to go around the whole rabbit with short little marks, adding to that fur effect. You see it? I'm going to do it down here as well. Again, it's hiding. I mean, you can still see that pencil mark a little bit, but it's hiding it. I'm going to go up through here. I'm going all the way around. Go for it. It adds some more texture to the rabbit. And I'm just going to keep going. So I'm going to go around his whole body. Okay, so I've covered his whole body. See how it gives it a completed look? I like it. Okay, so let's think about how we're going to finish this off. I mean, you could leave it just as the plain bunny, but, you know, don't. Do something to it. So it depends on what you have. I mean, if you wanted to keep on with the coffee, you could. The problem with the coffee is that, for me, because I didn't have instant, I only have this one tone with it. And I have tried it where you let it dry and layer it like you would a watercolor, but it doesn't do anything for me. So what I'm going to use is some watercolor paints. You can use whatever you want to. If you don't have watercolor paints, maybe you have markers. You could use a marker and do the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish the ground. Think about where your rabbit would be located. I told you that I live by the lake and they're all over the place around here. So I think about the tall grass that they kind of hide in. So I'm going to put that in. Now he is simple, so I want to keep my grass simple. Now sometimes people have a tendency to want to make the grass super short. Don't do that, because think about the proportion of the grass to the rabbit. So it's probably pretty tall. Start, just like I was talking about the fur, when you're putting in the marks of the grass, think about it growing out of the ground. Grass is kind of like hair that way. And you could think about how tall it should be. It can be pretty tall. I'm going to bump this up so you can see what I'm doing here. Notice how, like, as it loses its pigment, it gets lighter. I like that effect because that's going to show more depth of space. Now here comes the part that a lot of people are afraid to do. Don't be afraid to go over top of your image. Okay? Because if the rabbit's truly in the grass, then you've got to be okay with putting him in the grass. So put some grass back there. All right. Now, if your sky looks pretty good and it's not really loaded with, it's not dirty, if you were able to keep your page pretty clean, then, you could think about leaving it just white. I have a little spot there. So what I'm going to do to hide that is I'm going to let my grass get taller. I'm going to let him really be in the grass. And then I'm going to add some little flowers in there. Now I'm going to keep them simple. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of pink watercolor. And I'm just going to kind of make it like little heart shapes. Again, when you're adding these in, you have to be okay with them going in areas that overlap. You even give them 3. And voila, you have your rabbit. I hope you enjoy and I hope you play. If you do and you make one, please share it either on Facebook at Visual Arts at Metaview or on Instagram at Factory at Metaview. I'd love to see your interpretation of this project. And if you don't want to do this rabbit, then do a rabbit that you come up with. And that would be even exciting to see that too. Okay? But try the coffee because it's fun. And it's like scratch and sniff without the scratch. Your painting will smell like coffee. How about that? All right. See you later.